No One Likes Us Clothing is the clothing range designed by Millwall fans for Millwall fans. Caps, t-shirts, polos, they've got it all. Visit noonelikesus.co.uk for the full range. Or if you're in Bermondsey on a match day, why not have a pint in the Blue Anchor pub and pick up a Nolu polo shirt, Nolu clothing at www.noonelikesus.co.uk.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Bermondsey. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall, something for the weekend, sir, with my regular Friday guest, the man himself, Mr. Neil Fissler. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Good afternoon. And may I say, give us somebody who's gone woke. Haven't you go into women's football? Not the Millwall I know.
I was went with Harry last night, listeners, just to explain anyone that didn't see the social media. Went to Walthamstow to watch Harry's women's side. He's part of the setup there. We're going to do a separate podcast of that, so I'm not going to rise to Neil's jibe, his cheap jibe at me. It's so early in the morning. Well, it's 11 o'clock, not even early in the morning now, but I shall leave that to one side. Listeners, it has been a difficult week to be a Millwall fan. We obviously had that disappointing loss last Saturday at home to Reading, swiftly followed up by an even more disappointing loss for me, Neil, on Tuesday night at Turf Moor, 2-0 to Burnley, a game where we contained Burnley to some extent in the first half and then let it slip away with the repeat silly errors that we've seen so often through this season. I'm going to talk about it in a moment with Neil, but I just wanted to say before we begin, listeners, that for me, Gary Rowett's taking a lot of flack online. Rightly so. It's his name that's the bottom line underwriting the team selection and the management of Mill Football Club. But Neil, I think that you've also got to point the finger at some fairly senior players that aren't playing for him. You and me could talk all day till the cows come home about the benefits of a back four, back five, one formation over another. But if players don't play or don't perform to their expected levels, and I'm talking about the likes of Jake Cooper, Danny Mack, listeners, some might not like that, but he's not been playing well. Scott Malone is an obvious choice. There's others. But if those players, Neil, don't play to their levels, you'd have the best formation in the world and you're still going to get beat. And I think Gary Rowett is in that zone at the moment. How do you see it?
Mate, I think that you ought to put a trigger warning on this as you've now gone woke.
He's not going to leave this alone, is he?
No, I'm not. You're right. No, to be honest, it doesn't help that Gary Rowett has got 7 or 8 players badly out of form. Yeah. And that's not make too many bones about it. They are badly out of form.
Yeah.
Players that you normally rely on, that you think are good, steady performers. We look awful at the back, don't we? Which was our strong point. That was what we've based so much of everything on.
So fragile now. Yeah.
18 months, we look fragile, as you say. We're struggling to create anything in attack. In fact, actually, our attacking threat has got all the force of a pacifist, really, hasn't it? It's just you don't. We started off okay against Stoke, and I know that we've got, I think we've got, 7 or 8 points. We've probably got the same amount as last season at the same time, haven't we?
Yeah, 19th in the table at the minute, 7 points from 7 games, 4 defeats.
The performances are worrying because he just doesn't seem to be able to turn it around. I know people will say, but we've played 3 of the best teams in the league away from home, but we haven't perform well against the majority of them.
No.
And last week against Reading was absolutely, I was spewing. I was absolutely spewing. And to be honest, it's dispiriting. It's getting to a stage now where you're 7, 8 games into the season and you don't want to watch it.
It's early. It's early to be at that point, Neil, isn't it? Because a lot of pre-season buzz around the place. It's gone. It's not there at the moment.
Yeah, but that feel-good factor where we brought in Fleming, we brought in Afobe, we brought in Honeyman in those 3 or 4 days. It's back down to earth with a bit of a crash bang Wallop Millwall style, isn't it? And
yeah, I'm just looking at this interview here with Dan Marsh. I think that's London News Online. He's talking after the Burnley defeat. Gary Rowett says it's up to him to find the solutions for the reasons that you've just said, Neil. I mean, a lot of players, a good block of players, not in form. There may be 1,000,001 reasons why so many players get out of form at once. I mean, it's in the human nature to sometimes you have good days, you have bad days, and so on. But for so many to be under par at the moment does make you wonder about the mood of the squad, the faith in the manager. I don't know that he's quite got the dressing room with him, which he's kind of saying it's up to him to find a way to get that. And yes, it is, because that's what he's paid for. But it's been so the contrast between the pre-season and now is so in 1 month has gone so flat.
Yeah, well, that's the solution for him. Yeah, and that's make some bold decisions, Gary. I did notice that the new guy at News at Den last week said Gary Rowett made a bold decision to change the formation. Yeah, but he actually changed it after 60, 65 minutes, yeah? Let's make a bold decision. Yeah, we can all see in the first half last week that it was not working.
Yeah, at half time, yeah.
But he would, after 30 minutes, hook a couple of players off, make a statement, yeah? Even at half time, it was crying out for a change of formation. This formation does not suit Millwall. It's 5 at the back, 3 central defenders. I won't deviate from what I believe in. No, mate, you've got to deviate from what you believe in because you're starting to lose it. And I tell you now, if it all goes south tomorrow against Cardiff, I think Mr. Rowett will find out what Millwall fans are actually all about, because it hasn't quite got toxic yet. But
I agree. I think we're on the brink of toxicity.
The brink. Yeah, we're on the brink of it, Nick.
If you can have such a thing, we're on the brink. I mean, he sailed close to the wind a couple of times. Obviously, a fair chunk of his time was COVID restricted, and that he hasn't had the fans on his case. I mean, there've been poor runs with the return of fans where I think he got to hear it. I do think tomorrow will be a different level, because if it goes badly, and I hope it doesn't go badly, listeners, let's set it out. And I think, Neil, you're the same. I mean, no one wants to see Millwall managers hounded, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but he's got family. He's got to earn his living, and you don't want to see the guy fail. You want
Millwall to win.
Yeah, there's too many people that will knock this club for anything. Yeah, at the slightest drop of a hat. Okay, I've probably been guilty of that in the past, but we want Millwall to succeed. Yeah, but if anything, this has served as a bit of a reality check. We're not going to get promoted.
Well, not at the moment. We're not. That's for sure.
It's starting to slip. We're looking like we could be dragged into a relegation fight, and we're not one of the worst teams in the league. Well, we are on form, but if you look at everything, just change your formation, man. Go with Fleming behind the bloody front 3 or something like that. Just do something. You've got to change it. Yeah, there are some promising signs. Fleming looks
apart. Vogelsong looks the part for me, Neil, as well.
Sammer looks like a good player.
And we know about Tyler. We know how talented he is, and yes, he's an airy-fairy winger. So he'll have good moments and bad moments. He'll take chances, and sometimes that doesn't work out. But the boy is a talent. I think he's going to go a long way in the game. And if we don't employ him, Neil, that comes back to the manager, doesn't it?
One thing about I don't want to harp on to last Saturday, but he actually had that Reading fullback on toast.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, you could see every time Tyler Bury got the ball, he was going to push it past him, go around him. That's what you've got to do. I think did somebody the other night. I was watching a game. I forget who it was now, and they actually targeted the fullback. They got him booked, and then the winger, exactly the same thing. You pull him down, and it's quite likely that he's going to bring you down and get sent off. It's not. He's one of those players that gets you on the edge of your seat type of thing, isn't it? Because you just don't know what he's going to do.
Highly unpredictable, highly talented, and you have to. Yeah, I'm thinking back to the greats of the past, the Paul Ifields, the Jimmy Carters, and the others, and the Gordon Hills. If you go back long enough, but these kinds of players have their brilliant moments, and then other times they fall flat on their face because they're taking risks with the ball, and it doesn't always work every single time. I think one of the downfalls of football management, Neil, is, and Gary Rowett, I think, is probably the prime example of they elevate consistency above the ability to do the unexpected. They'll always go with the. I mean, you see it across football generally, don't you? England and especially where players of talent are not backed and not trusted, and they don't give you 100% every minute of every game. And it's that acceptance that sometimes these artists players, like I'm thinking of Tyler, possibly Zian Fleming too. He looks a good player, but you have to be prepared to go with the role of it slightly, because you won't always get brilliance every single time.
Yeah, no. Well, Rowett, when he came in, he was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was absolutely lovely attacking football.
Yeah,
and it just seems he now wants to be safe. Yeah, and this is Millwall. We don't do safe, do we?
Not really. No. There's an interview on. I don't know if it was News at Den. Listeners, forgive me. I haven't got it here, so I can't tell you which with this either News at Den or London News. And apologies to the one that it was. But he kind of touches on it. I mean, there's a quote here. He says he likes this five at the back, and the reason he likes five at the back is because it's flexible, and a lot of other teams have had some measure of success with it.
It's very inflexible.
But it doesn't produce. It doesn't play to the Den. The Den is, for better or for worse, it's an emotional cauldron, and you need to bring the Den on side, and without going down the Holloway, five striker route, you need to play a fairly attacking style to bring the Den into play, Neil.
Yeah, look, as my son would say, Millwall are a bread and butter 4-4-2 club, aren't we? There are variations on it, but Millwall, we like the wingers bombing on, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We like a certain type of centre forward.
We like. We like somebody with a bit of bite in the centre of midfield. Yeah,
we do. Yeah. I mean, it is in the blood.
We just haven't got any of that in these performances, and it's just depressing. I switched off after half an hour on Wednesday.
Did you? You turned it off? Did you?
Just actually couldn't be bothered with it. I thought, well, you're underperforming. Go away. I'm not going to give you another hour of my life.
Crucial fixture. I mean, obviously, talking about centre forwards and working the Millwall spirit. We've got Steve Morrison in charge of Cardiff, with Marlon Romeo taking the field tomorrow. So it's got potential we need a performance. I think I'm going to try and turn this around. I'm going to talk about Cardiff. I want to see a Millwall performance where we tap into the attacking spirit of the Den, and let's get a couple of goals. Let's put them to the sword. It would be wonderful, Neil, to go down the Den. We go every 2 weeks and leave there on a buzz where we've put a team, put them to bed badly, and that will be great because we haven't seen that for a long while. Staging comebacks from 2 goals behind is great, but I want to see us rip a team to pieces. I haven't seen it for such a long time now, and it'll be so refreshing if we can see it tomorrow.
You can take defeat because we're proper football fans down at Millwall, aren't we?
We understand the game, don't we? Yeah, that's right.
Actually take a defeat, but what you can't take is a defeat with a non-performance.
Yeah.
Like last week against Reading and
Well, to some level, Tuesday night as well. I mean, 400 people travelled up to Burnley on a Tuesday night to watch.
And yeah, but
They get
that's
served up with that.
a toilet. Yeah, it's a toilet on a Saturday without going there bloody midweek. It's just But then, but Burnley are one of those places or teams that I think if you get something out of them, it's a bonus, especially up there because they've just come down from the Premier League. There's a vast chasm, a difference in funding and what we can afford and what they can afford. Christ, they bought Scott Twine for £4 million off MK Dons, and he's injured.
Yeah,
It's suicidal if we spent £4 million and the player was injured, wouldn't we?
absolutely. Managed by Vincent Kompany, so you got the glamour and you're tapping into Manchester City and Belgian talents on a scale that we can't. What we can bring to the table is commitment, and I think that's the bit. And I think, in fairness to Gary Rowett, that's what I think he's referring to in his interviews. That it's for the players to bring their game to the table too, because that's not been happening, whatever the formation may or may not be. Onto some transfer news. Yesterday was transfer deadline day. I'm still not quite. We can't say conclusively, Neil, at the moment as we're recording, whether we have or haven't signed Barnsley's Callum Styles. I don't know if there's a slow motion video being made or whether he went back to Barnsley and nothing happened. You can't tell, can you, at the moment?
No. How long do TikTok videos make?
It take very long, but there we are.
And I think it's probably the Football League have to ratify it. You don't have to make a signing at 11 o'clock last night.
You get the paperwork in, I believe, don't you?
You can put in a deal sheet, and that'll give you an extra couple of hours, I think, to get everything.
Get the ball rolling.
Yeah, basically to get I's dotted and the T's crossed, etc., etc., etc.
He's quite well rated, this boy, Callum's. I don't know him, listeners. I'm just reading from Richard Corley's lead paragraph here, 22 years old. Capped 6 times by Hungary. I'm guessing he's got familial links to Hungary. Started at Burnley. Can play as central mid or also as a left wing back. Scott Malone, maybe he was starting to get, itchy and scratchy with that news because we do need to liven up on the left. So let's keep our fingers crossed that deal did get to Football League HQ by the cut-off time. So big fixture tomorrow. We're going to take a short break now, listeners, and then we'll come back after the messages, and we're going to talk about Steve Kavanagh's statement posted on the Mill Club site, Neil.
Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back after the break, listeners. I suppose the big news off the field, Neil, was this statement by Steve Kavanagh. There's quite a few elements, quite a wordy, lengthy statement on the main website. Open with the good news. The supporter who collapsed during the course of last week's game at home to Reading has been discharged from hospital, and he pays tribute in his piece to the actions of fans who did alert the medical team quite quickly to this situation, and obviously to the medics that basically saved their chap's life, reading between the lines of Steve's statement. So that's good news.
Yeah, I didn't think the performance was that bad that somebody wanted to get up. But no, obviously, without comedy routine.
It's a drastic way down. Since I've had my little bit of travel, listeners, I always have this kind of mental image how I might get carried out of the den at some point. But it's great news to hear that the chap concerned.
Yeah, no, it is.
Has been discharged.
The guy's probably got families, got to earn a living, and you shouldn't get a football match and then not come back. I think they acted very swiftly, which helped. And they do these days. I think you saw both club doctors racing across.
Yeah, the Reading chap and the Millwall, and obviously our own medical team were there. So it's hats off to everyone involved in that, and I think that's part of Kavanagh's statement, the opening paragraph. So good news there. Moving through it now, we touched on this in our last show, you and me, or you raised it actually. This is this controversy about Lewisham's safety stadium safety panel, raising the issue of away fans standing, and the probable need, according to Steve Kavanagh, that we're going to have to fit rail seating to enable standing at the away end. Going to cost us £100,000 because of the design of the den, which doesn't lend itself very easily to rail seating.
Yeah, the bedwet have been busy again, haven't they? You know what? Yeah. You look at it and you think for a couple of hundred fans, yeah, how difficult it to sit down.
People don't know, do they? I mean, the Millwall fans don't when they go away.
Yeah, they don't at home either.
No,
You're just costing the club money, and it seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot better things the club want to spend under £1,000 on, as opposed to safe standing or seating or whatever you want to call it. Us switch off as soon as I hear the word safe, so I've got no idea what it is. But
interesting. I'm just looking at Steve Kavanagh's statement. He's talking about the away end. The North Stand is its official name. The away end, as it would be known. It's apparently, I didn't know this, and I couldn't have told you this, but it has a slightly steeper angle. I suppose the land at the back side of that end is actually quite enclosed there. It was plenty of space around the outskirts of the Millwall sections, but not so much at the away end. So I think the angle of that particular stand is slightly steeper, which has probably led to the interest of the safety officer. The danger being of people standing that a progressive crowd collapse, which sounds like a music festival, doesn't it? Like a progressive rock,
Yeah, but how long's that stand been open?
20, 30 years, isn't it? 1993 opened.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, so that's not worry about something that might happen. It hasn't happened. Yeah, it's just a ridiculous waste of money, bureaucracy from somebody who bullied and wets the bed. Yeah, I cannot express in words how.
I think you've done a fair job, Neil. I think you're doing a fairly good job of expressing in words, mate. I'm with you. I mean, I think what happens, this is a bit like anyone out there listening who've ever dabbled in the world of the likes of fire safety and kind of public area safety of any kind, whether that be residential or commercial of any kind. Those that are tasked with enforcing health and safety rules have a job that they have to show that they're doing. And many's the trivial situation that I've dealt with in my working life, where you think, why am I clearing away someone's doormat because it's alleged to be a fire risk? But that's the level, and if you don't do it, the whip hand they hold, and I think don't know the chap here, we probably best we don't know him, but the whip hand they hold over any organisation like Millwall FC in this situation is the what if. What if something were to happen? It's going to be on you. It's your criminal offence then, because you didn't follow the advice that I'm giving. I think that's where the club are caught, and they're going to have to spend money now to deal with this alleged issue. I'm with you 100%, Neil, but they probably don't. Their hands are tied. They don't have much choice in the matter, but put rail seating in the upper decks of the away end.
Yeah, there is no solution to it. They win all day, every day, don't they? Yeah, you can't beat these people because they just withdraw your safety certificate.
Well, for that reason, they will withdraw the cert, and you're up a gum tree.
It's as if they're getting a drink off the.
It's a good job we don't know this bloke's name. There's all sorts of libelous allegations.
It's true, isn't it? You must have these rail seatings, and then you probably see.
One thing.
Cash.
One thing that does, I mean, there's the safety angle at the away end, but I mean, many's the fan, and I include myself actually, because I'm not an architect, but a lot of people have called for stand-up rail seating because it adds a better atmosphere, and it certainly can do at other grounds where they're not blessed with the fire in the belly that we bring to the den. Because we get a pretty good atmosphere without any rail seating, in my opinion, compared with many other stadiums around the country. But one thing that did strike me is how the Den was designed as a seated stadium, and that doesn't lend itself very easily to the installation of these rail seats. You'd think it would be a remove and bolt in job, but it's not quite as straightforward as that. The design doesn't lend itself.
I think it's probably also something to do with the width of the of the
The
thing.
aisle, yeah. I
You
think
put your feet, basically. Yeah, but I would have thought, yeah, okay, it's a brand new stadium, it's bolt in, bolt out. But if it's not that easy,
apparently it creates sightline issues if you did it. Block 18, I can't think where that is. The Cavan has mentioned there that it will create sightline issues if you just installed without too much thought for the consequences around seating. We'll see. We're going to have to, we'll keep an eye on it. And it looks like next season, at least, you'll see some rail seating in the away end for this very reason. Moving along, he also mentions as we go through the blah 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 through the statement. It's a fairly wordy statement, listeners, on the official site, but. We talked about the withdrawal of the match day program. You and me we're just talking off air, Neil, about the shame of it, and Neil's already had a little dig at me for going to that women's game last night. But one thing that did strike me, Neil, about London Seawood, and I said this to you before, is that it was a match day program, physical match day program now. Millwall not doing it because it costs too much money, according to Steve Kavanagh. It lost the production of the match day program last season, 21-22, lost £35,000 in producing it.
you covered this in a pod.
Yeah.
But from everything I've heard, the fans program that Chrissy Bethel and his motley crew are putting together, is actually wiping its mouth, at least. So it just goes to show that they can come up with all the figures they like. Yeah. Is the budget going? Is the budget going into the marketing account, or is it going into the media account, or the revenue raised from the likes of ad sales? And to be honest, if they'd have made a better program that people wanted, they might actually have flogged a few more copies. It's taken this, I think, to wake some fans up to the fact that if you don't buy it, you run the risk of losing it. I know there are people online that have said, "Oh, I haven't bought a program for years, but I'm now buying the
Chris Bethel version." Yeah. I put myself in that category. I mean, I'm a great believer. I support what you're saying there entirely, because if you don't, goes for many things. If you don't support something, you don't go or buy, then things die. But apparently it lost money and it's been done away for that reason. They do send out an email match pack, which I've seen, and it's useful enough if you're doing a podcast, but I'm not sure I'd sit and look at it for terribly long otherwise. But there we are. So that's that. We, as you say, we have done a podcast on that as part of the modern scene. But I just find it interesting how smaller clubs can and do produce basic programs. Hats off to those that do. The other thing that caught my eye, it's funny. It's not funny, the cost of living crisis, but he refers to the cost of turning the floodlights on. We might be doing the old Theo thing of turning the floodlights on 5 minutes before kickoff because of the sheer cost of running stadium level floodlights.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was scrolling through Twitter this morning. My local league, the South West Peninsula League, have given permission for clubs in, I think it's November, December, January, and February to kick off at 2:00. But in the event of injuries and that, they've stipulated that floodlights must be switched on. But it's obviously a concern. I don't know why you just can't leave it to the adults to decide what time you want to kick off anyway. I would have thought that there's more benefit in those non-league clubs or clubs kicking off a bit earlier. And then you're allowed to get people staying on in the clubhouse to watch games, or some people might decide that no, Fisher kicks off at 12:00, that one or two people or a few people might go and watch Fisher and then amble their way down to the Den.
I agree. I went there the other day, nice little setup, but it clashes. And if you're kicking off at 3:00 on Saturday, which I think they do have a game on Saturday, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to Millwall. Many non-league clubs try to tie in with that their bar open for the TV game, which is, I think, is a 12:30 kickoff normally, isn't it? So you get people in the bar buying, watching the TV, going outside, watch the non-league game, then back in the bar after the game for the 5:30 kickoff, and that works reasonably well. But as far as the floodlights are concerned, I mean, I'm old enough, listeners, to remember the miners' strikes of the early 70s when floodlights were banned by the government. And it was quite common to see Saturday kickoffs at 1 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock, you name it, 12:30.
Yeah,
Earlier starts, you know.
as well, weren't there? Because obviously you were back then, for those younger listeners, you never worked on the Wednesday afternoon, did you? Wednesday afternoon was your day off.
It was day off, early closing. That's a thing that's gone out the window. Anyway, that's a different subject. But yeah, so we may see it. We may see it. I wonder whether the EFL will be given dispensation to move kickoffs, because it would make financial sense if it's going to be as expensive as Steve Kavanagh's implying here. We'll see.
Very interestingly, I was listening to the price of football. I wish I'd paid a bit more attention to it the other week when Kieran Maguire was talking about it. Apparently, clubs can bulk buy their energy in advance. So if you buy whatever you buy unit at, say, £5 a unit or £3 a unit,
Yeah.
if it goes above that, you're in credit, and obviously the energy company picks up the tab. And if it falls below that, well, you've prepaid, and it's just tough luck.
Yeah, I suppose those kinds of deals obviously reflect the market. I mean, it's a very different podcast it's turned into, listeners. We've gone from someone waiting in his bed to talking about energy, the nuances of energy buying on a bulk level, but they would still reflect the market. I suppose if the general price of electricity is going to go up, and it goes up quite substantially, as it seems it will do, then even the bulk buy price will be substantially higher than maybe that the club has catered for
a long time ago. So you buy it a year, and then you're in fixed term contract. But you would have thought, in theory, it shouldn't really affect a big business like
no. It's mentioned in his. It must be a factor, Neil. It's mentioned in this statement. So
it's one of those things you don't really. You don't really pay much attention to it, do you?
No, it's just the floodlights they're on. I mean, I do remember when Theo was came in the late 90s, going to evening games where they'd have like the lights on like a half light, so you'd get into like a semi-gloomy den, and then they'd only switch the full floodlights on 5 minutes before kickoff. You know.
Yeah, it'd be those yellowy lights, wouldn't it? And
yeah.
Game was actually on, especially in the middle of winter.
Because that was a money-saving thing, and the club was in trouble, and that was part of his turnaround, along with many, many other things, to restrict spending and, maximise income, which is the key to any business.
No post at the training ground.
No toast, famously not. Right. The planning application, talk about the training ground, the planning application for the new West Kingsdown site is proceeding, and the club are doing all sorts of work with Sevenoaks Council, community. It's an interesting thing, I find. This is the emphasis on this training ground and the links to the area of Sevenoaks, Brands Hatch are being developed all the time. It's one of those things where it will be officially denied, but you do wonder what the long-term plan is, whether it is to get out to that part of Kent and get away from inner London. I think it would be a disaster for Millwall Football Club in terms of identity to leave Bermondsey, but money drives these things, doesn't it?
Which brings us on to the golden share.
It brings us nicely onto the last part of Steve Kavanagh's statement, and I'm going to take my podcast hat off slightly here, Neil, and put my Lions Trust hat on, because there's the final element is actually quite a major thing in a way, and apologies for anyone's eyes glaze over with boredom as I try to do my best to explain what's going to happen. But Millwall FC, which was from the 1980s, it was a public limited company. When Reg Burr, anyone who was around the 80s will remember Reg Burr launching us on the share market. It's probably one of the most, with the benefit of hindsight, it wasn't the best thing that you could do in football. There was a bit of a trend at the time for football clubs to list themselves on the private stock exchange. This was the era of the Big Bang. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. and Millwall was part of that. So we started selling shares in the club, and over time, many shares were reissued as the club, which didn't make an awful lot of money. The shares became progressively diluted with more and more share issues until we reached a point in, I think it was 2010, when amazingly Millwall FC had 43,000 small shareholders. And these would be people like the likes of you and me, Neil. I mean, I didn't buy any shares, but I know many people who did. They wanted to both help and support their football club and feel partly connected to it. And to be a shareholder is a connection, isn't it? So the many share issues we've had over time, 43,000. What happened in 2010? The club decided this was unwieldy, unmanageable, and expensive to manage. And some might say controversially, some might say with a business eye, they basically removed the vast bulk of those small shareholders' shares. They were quite literally scooped up and taken away, which can be done under company law. I'm not an expert on it. I can only tell you my experience of it as a chair of the Lions Trust. And these shares were taken away from people, and at the time they were the fractional shares, as they're called, were passed over to the Lions Trust, and that took the number of shareholders from 43,000 down to roughly 8,400. So we still have 8,400 shareholders at the moment, and most of those would still be relatively small-scale shareholders, fans for the best description, Millwall fans. And the same plan is going to apply now. The club, and this will go through because although you vote on it, it's not a democracy in the conventional sense. Basically, the bigger the shareholder, and the biggest shareholder is John Berylson, they command the bulk of the votes. So whatever John Berylson decides to do, he will win his election or his voting, or whatever way you want to put it, because he holds the majority of the voting power. So this will happen. They're going to reduce the numbers of shareholders down from 8,400 down to a level, I think it's 28, by making 10,000 shares represent and 1 share in the new structure. And the same procedure will apply. All those that lose their shares in this procedure will have the choice this time of either having those shares passed to the Lions Trust, or a small charitable donation to be made in lieu of the ownership to the community trust, the Mill Community Trust. As the Lions Trust, too many trusts here, aren't there? But the Lions Trust is the supporters trust. We're still in the process of trying to get it back alive and afloat, and dealing with the Financial Conduct Authority and the Football Supporters Association. It's a slow process. So at the moment, we don't have a formal membership, Neil, but we do have a list of people that expressed an interest, and we're going to refer back to those email contacts, those people that have expressed an interest in joining it when it's fully up and running. And we're going to ask them how we should vote. The vote won't make much difference, but I think there's a symbolism in Millwall fans either voting for this or against it. We will cast our vote according to the outcome of a survey that's been posted on the email link to all of those 160 odd people that have expressed an interest in becoming members of the Lions Trust. And then the second question is whether we should accept those scooped up shares, so to speak, that are being removed from Millwall fans, or from shareholders, probably a better way to put it. And should they be passed over to the Lions Trust, yes or no? Should we accept them or should we not accept them? So we're going to be guided on both of those questions. The first question, whether we vote yes or no, to some extent it's a done deal already. So you could argue that it's a symbolic vote one way or the other. We will follow the majority. And the same, to be honest, with the second one, whether we should or shouldn't accept the scooped up shares. We'll also follow the survey of our email membership. I hope I've explained that reasonably clearly, and I apologise. It's not an easy subject to describe in simple terms, but it's fundamentally that question of small shareholders being reduced down to basically 28 big shareholders who will remain as the shareholding of Millwall Football Club. The intention behind it, the club tell us, is to reduce costs to manage all these 8,000 people at the moment, and to hopefully induce new investment in the club. And I'm going to guess that links in with the previous subject of the training ground at Brands Hatch and the long-term well-being of Millwall Football Club. The idea is that with 8,000 shareholders, ownership is much, much harder to sell to new investors, if that makes any sense.
Things that strike me out of it is that I think John Berylson has got enough credit in the trust bank with us as supporters that if John Berylson thinks this is the right move for Millwall Football Club, that we should back him. He isn't one of these cowboy owners, and you only have to see what's happening at Worcester Warriors, the rugby team at the minute, to know what bad ownership is, because some of the stunts they're pulling is making Evel Knievel grin with envy. And John Berylson isn't one of those people. I think that he's okay. I think his long-term aim is to make some money off of all of the land, but that's fair enough. He's financing the club. I think he's put in 90 to 100 million pounds, is he, into the club?
It must be in that region. I don't know the figures, but he's invested a lot over the time, hasn't he?
And I think that when we remember the best chairman of Millwall in years to come, I think John Berylson deserves to be up there and mentioned amongst the very best, because, as I say, I think he hasn't made a decision yet that screams ego
or self-interest. No, I agree.
Interest. He's acting in the best interest of Millwall Football Club, I think, and I think we have to back him. He backs us often enough, so I think this is a chance for us to back John Berylson. And the second point would be, I think it would be a fantastic idea if the Lions Trust, accepts unwanted shares or shares from these 8,000 people, or from people, because to have the Lions Trust as one of the 28 biggest shareholders in the club would safeguard us, and it would also come back to what the previous point about strengthening our links with Kent, and does that mean that the club could move us? But no, from what I can gather, the Crouch report would actually give the Lions Trust a veto on that.
Yeah, if it's implemented, that's right, it will do. I think some clubs are going down that, or have said that they'll go down that road without the government legislation. We're obviously in a difficult political time. Not going to get involved in the rights and wrongs of that. We'll wait to see whether that comes
to go down that road as well. I think that Steve Kavanagh's trying to drive this, isn't he? Say what you like about Mr. Kavanagh, and I know he does get quite a lot of stick because of the football team that he supports. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's being Millwall chief exec can't be an easy job. I wouldn't fancy it myself, but
it's driving force in this, and I think it is. Yeah, well, I must admit, when the Lions Trust first started, the eyes glazed over all of those years ago.
It's
but I think it is. I think when you see some of the stunts being pulled by some owners and around the leagues, and
you need a strong supporters, in my opinion. I mean, just to give a little brief update as to where the Lions Trust is at, because we announced that we're relaunching it some months ago. As I've said already, I think we have to deal with the Financial Conduct Authority, because it's a shareholding that holds shares in Millwall FC, and it holds it on behalf of its members. So there's a slight chicken and egg quality to this, in that we're trying to revive the trust, which had fallen into it fallen by the wayside slightly, but it still holds a shareholding. It will hold some more once, and I think it will be once this goes through. But we're dealing slowly with the Financial Conduct Authority. We'll then rejoin with the Football Supporters Association once we've got the FCA, financial conduct side, sorted, and I think that might be getting closer now. Once we're registered, my intention, I'm chairing it temporarily whilst we revive it. My intention then is to hopefully find a suitable Millwall fan who's willing to chair it. It's not a supporters club. It does hold shares. It does have a financial, it's registered with the FCA, so it's important that it's there, and it will hold these responsibilities potentially of vetoing the move of the ground, vetoing changes of club colours, badge, name, all that kind of thing. So we're hopefully soon being in a position to say it's now fully back alive again, so to speak. Then we can get some formal members, paid members, because you have to pay £10, I think, was traditionally the amount that you paid to be a member. And then hopefully we can get a new chairman, a new committee elected, because it's a membership driven thing. You have to refer back to your members, and the chairman is somebody that commands support from a majority of members that vote. So we're getting closer to it. It is a slow process. I apologise to people because it has been a very slow process, but we're not far short of it now. So there will be some more news on that, hopefully in due course.
What I would have thought would be a good idea, Nick, would be, I know that we did a podcast on it, me, you and Phil Clark.
We did, yeah.
Summer. I think if people want to search that out, or if you put it out on the socials this weekend,
yeah,
if somebody wants to listen to it and they do want to get involved, because this is the future of Millwall, yeah. For 160 people, I think it's shocking, really. I am one of the people that has expressed an interest. I will pay up. I will join. Because this is the club that we love, and the apathy of everybody that's very quick to criticise.
Yeah, I think it's
60 people's embarrassing, to be quite honest. I think that it should be 10 times that at least.
Yeah, I mean the Lions Trust is not about day by day issues. It's not going to deal with your cold chips or the fact that the beer was flat.
Yeah. This is the MSC. This
should be for the supporters club. The Lions Trust is about the taking care of the shareholding. You're holding it on behalf of other people, so there's not a great market in Millwall shares anyway. It may become a market, I suppose, if investment and we took off with some success, but it's not about that. It's about making sure that fans that it exists, that the fans have a proper voice, especially on these hugely important issues like potential holding a veto over moving of grounds and the identity issues, as they call them, the colours, the badge, the name, and so on. It's really important, but it's not sexy in that sense. It's very important, but it's not. They're not going to get involved in someone getting slung out and the steward said this and didn't do that on the way out. I don't know. It's not day by day stuff.
With ownership, isn't it? Anything to do with the day-to-day stuff, as you say. It's to do with the ownership of the club, the custody of the club, the custodianship, if you like.
I think what we're looking for, I mean, I've said that I'll do this temporarily to get it revived because, I don't want to keep going banging on about me, listeners, but it's not something I can do on a regular basis. There isn't that much. Once it's alive and set up and registered, it should, largely speaking, just tick over. I mean, it's there. You want it there. You don't want it to fade away. You can think of it like a lifeboat. If the club ever fell into, like an AFC Wimbledon situation, that was a supporters trust led revival that they had. So if they ever got into that kind of predicament, you'd want the supporters trust to be ready to step forward. So you need to have it. It needs to be well maintained. Think of it as a lifeboat, listeners. You want to make sure your lifeboat don't leak and it's ready to go if it's ever needed. But you don't want to go cruising in a lifeboat. You want it to be an ocean-going luxury liner, but you need lifeboats just in case. And obviously with the identity issues, they're very important. So the actual running of it would be hopefully not too taxing, but you do need to be someone who's not afraid of dealing with boardroom level. I don't know if I'm trying to find the right words. You need someone that's willing to sit in the boardroom and talk on the level. You've got to deal with the financial conduct authority from time to time, not very often. So you mustn't be afraid of that. You're probably talking about somebody that's running their own business or director, that kind of feeling. I'm hoping I'm not excluding anyone in saying that, but
You can't be afraid to put your head above the parapet either, because you will.
no, from time to time you've got to do that. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, we will be more news on that as and when the trust is fully revived, so to speak, and we'll come back on the show and speak about it then. One last thing to close us out, Neil. I had an email from a member of a band. The band is playing tomorrow at the bar at the Cobbler Lane end. The Bermondsey Blues Band. They play Dr. Feelgood, 9 Below Zero style standards, blues, Bermondsey blues. That's a whole genre of music that I think ought to be more widely known. The Bermondsey blues might be Bermondsey blues for Gary Rowett if tomorrow doesn't go well.
We've got some breaking news. Remember when we had some breaking news?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, when Vogel Slammer signed.
Yep.
The club have just tweeted that Callum Styles has joined the Lions on loan.
There we are. We recorded long enough to get that breaking news. That's fantastic.
Half of our podcast, totally and utterly useless.
When's that ever stopped us before, Neil?
On transfer deadline day, or Thursday as it's normally down at Millwall.
That's a good joke. I like that one.
Yeah, well, Aldo can put his can actually stop playing Football Manager now. He's found us. A midfielder who can play left wing back. Sorry, mate. I've lost it weirdly.
Good news. Welcome to the club, Callum Styles. That's good news.
There's nothing been heard of Isaac Alofe. Story on London News Online on Thursday saying that he could leave on loan.
Talking about loaning him out, weren't they? But nothing. I've seen nothing on it since, so I presume he's still with us.
Yeah, I hope he's still with us because we need some pace, and Isaac Alofe has got pace in abundance.
He just needs it. He needs that goal. He's like Benik Afobe. He just needs a goal. Get in amongst it somehow.
Yeah, we stick with players, and from what I've been reading on Hoff and Twitter and one or two of the Facebook groups, people genuinely want to see this lad succeed. Yeah. And we want to see a homegrown player succeed, don't we?
Me too. I'm part of that mindset. We haven't seen enough of him.
He's 23.
Yeah,
and we have to know: is he good enough? Can he survive at this level? That we play at. Sending him out on loan, it doesn't.
He's not answering that question. No, I agree.
And he's just kicking the ball down the road. I'd much rather, and it would appear as if we are keeping him now, unless something's happened and with
unannounced so far, maybe. I don't know.
I'd rather see that he plays now. Between now and I was going to say Christmas, but unfortunately, it's between now and November.
Isn't it? Yeah, for the break.
Because then we've got the World Cup break. But I would like to see him given this season.
I agree. Let's give him a go. He's one of our own. Get him out there. I agree.
Lose. It's useless. Sending him out on loan tells you absolutely nothing about can he play in the Championship. Yeah, let's try him in the Championship. You can always loan him out in January or at the end of January. You can give him a nice run and
absolutely give him a go. No, I'm with you. Absolutely. Let's hope he is staying. Let's hope he gets that go in a game. We've not exactly been awash with goals, so getting rid of a striker seems a bit counterintuitive. But there we are. It seems as though he's still with us based on that. I just want to repeat my shout out. I said I'd give it to Paul, the bassist. Say hello to Paul, the bassist, to my listeners. The Bermondsey Blues Band at the bar. 9 Below Zero, Dr. Feelgood, Bermondsey Blues style. They're also playing at the Gregorian on Jamaica Road every fortnight, the first and third Sunday evenings of the month at the Gregorian at the Greg. Big shout out to the Bermondsey Blues Band.
Yeah, we go on about the match day experience, and by all accounts, and I do know this because the game I went to last season, there are one or two very good bands that are playing.
There was a young female band. I can't think of their name, but they're like a mod style new wave band.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like I remember listening to them.
Yeah.
Last season, and they're fantastic, absolutely brilliant. They really were good.
So fair play to these local acts. You know, I've seen that group, the one that you're talking about. They're playing local pubs. I think it was what's the one on New Cross Road? Mark Chris at Granby. I think they were playing there. I believe. Check them out. I mean, as you say, this is supporting local artists. This band here are playing at the Greg every fortnight on a Sunday evening. You've got to support them. If you don't support them, there's no fun in this life, is there, if you don't support these things? So shout out to the Bermondsey Blues Band. They're going to be there from 1:30 tomorrow. And you can't argue with Dr. Feelgood, listeners. Come on. All right, so that's probably our agenda done, Neil. So unless you wanted to add anything, got anything more on your little list?
No, I haven't, mate.
I think you've done enough. I think you said enough, Fissler.
Yeah, I think I've probably offended enough people, haven't I? Yeah, no.
It wouldn't be a show unless you did, mate. It wouldn't be the same show unless you did.
Yeah, but you didn't get me on last Saturday. I was absolutely steaming.
Oh dear. Let's hope for better tomorrow. There we are. Huge thank you to Neil for taking time out of his Friday morning. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, no problem, mate. No problem. I look forward to speaking to everybody again next week.
And to you too, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until the next edition, Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
You have been listening to Achtung Millwall. Please do leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Dankeschön. Up the lines.
No One Likes Us Clothing is the clothing range designed by Millwall fans for Millwall fans. Caps, t-shirts, polos, they've got it all. Visit noonelikes.us.co.uk for the full range. Or if you're in Bermondsey on a match day, why not have a pint in the Blue Anchor pub and pick up a Nolu polo shirt, Nolu clothing at www.noonelikes.us.co.uk.